see it's getting darker and darker, and there's just no way right now for these drivers to know exactly what's going to happen.
These guys are going to have to be really, really careful and tiptoe around the track until it's either not even 10 minutes into this race, and I feel like we've got enough strategy going on for a whole event, but still a long, long way to go.
There's Yellowstone, there's Yosemite, but for racing fans and for Grid Life's Elkhart Classic, the destination is Road America, the National Park of Speed. Free ride in the front of the field here. Look at Emil Tab up the inside for the race leaders. We head down to the first corner.
These guys have no idea what they're coming into. Look at this field. They're 2 wide, 3 wide, a couple places slipping.
Side by side for the race lead. 54, 48 through 3 and 4. Working lap number 60, 110 laps to go. Yusuf Ghali, power move to the bottom of the racetrack, making the short way work. They're going to touch down the hill.
This will be a great run for Fuller here.
Yeah, typically ran off the track in the final quarter. That'll have Fuller get a massive.
Here he comes.
Does he have a look?
Oh, big block here by Sanfilippo. Into the grass goes Ben Fuller for turn 1, and Sanfilippo hangs on. He's loose. No! And he crashes hard in the exit of turn number 2. Don't try him here, boys. They're going to do it. Grimsco backs out. They touch. They're going to crash. Grimsco going to slam the attenuator hard into the wall, and Jared Tesson hits him as well, and big damage on these cars. That's a huge.
Number 4, people are struggling for grip, going out of every single lane, trying to then run. It's getting really insane.
Powered by AWS for the Intercontinental GT Challenge, powered by Pirelli. And the Indianapolis 8-hour. We are 7 hours and 18 minutes into this 8-hour event.
John Miller way deep on the brakes to the inside of turn number 1 and 2. The spin, the 3 car gets turned around in the front of the car.
James Houghton looking for a place to go, but he's got Austin Cobb to the inside. Bit of a gap behind. I think that's about 15th or 16th spot as they come out of turn 3. Big slide for this.
Getting a run. He's got it. Going to be a drag racing line. Final corner. Checkered flag waving. Here they come. At Virginia National Raceway. To the line. Thompson, Darling, door to door. Banging doors. Fender to fender. I can't believe what we just saw.
America's racing circuits are known for being unadulterated and unforgiving. Built in the land decades ago, instead of on top of it, tracks like Watkins Glen, Laguna Seca, and Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course have become staples in sports car racing. Tonight, it's Lamborghini Huracan GT3 Evos for the SCRS LazyRocket Super Trofeo Series round number 5 from Mid-Ohio. My name's Kyle Heyer alongside Tom O'Gorman for round number 5 of the SCRS Super Trofeo Series. From Tom, your home track. You were born and raised in Cincinnati, Ohio, not too far of a drive down the road. Tonight, round number 5, Lamborghinis all over again, V10 screaming down the backstreet.
I can tell you, Mid-Ohio gives me chills every time, and today's no exception, and chills up the arm because this place feels like home to me. I grew up, fell in love with racing, hanging off the fence down here at the S's, and on top of that, I think the SCRS series here, the support series with the Lamborghinis and the main series with the prototypes have become a personal favorite of ours because it's 2 cars that we feel super passionately about and really, really enjoy watching. This series has been so much fun, and round 5 will be no exception.
Going to kick things off here in a few minutes. We've got qualifying underway. Some new changes here to the qualifying and race procedure. After qualifying, we're going to take the top 8 qualifiers, Tom, and we're going to invert them for the race. Also, you'll notice the ticker looks a little bit different. We've officially separated our categories into Pro and Am. The Pro drivers in red, the Am drivers in orange, and now they're all running for the same championship. However, the Am drivers have their own as well. So 2 different championships going on right now.
Well, and if you look at that qualifying format and you say, okay, if you're going to invert the top 8, just throw qualifying if you're somebody who wants to start on pole. Well, there are points on the line for those championships in qualifying as well. So you want to score your championship points by qualifying well, but qualifying well might end up putting you in 7th, 8th position, which is going to be very interesting to watch this unfold because the season has been rather predictable at this point.
Has been predictable, and you're looking at Mr. Predictable right there. That's DJ Alessandrini in the number 3. One of our keys to the race we're going to go over in a little bit later is Beat the 3. He is very, very good in both the cars we'll be running tonight. The Lamborghini's Huracan GT3 Evo and the LMP2 car will be running later. DJ is hard to beat. How do you beat him, Tom? Is it a strategy thing? Is it just raw pace? How do you beat this number 3?
It's after Daytona, it's been raw pace. Daytona was the only race where there was really some strategy involved, and Zach Buchanan gave him a heck of a run for it, but came up just a little bit short at the start-finish line. In fact, only, 10 thousandths of a second short. It was .0001 of margin of victory for Alessandrini, but since then he's been dominant and undefeated every single round, 4 for 4 right now. So beat the 3 is definitely everybody's target. But I'm looking down the standings here in qualifying, and things look a little differently. Zach Buchanan has finished 2nd place in 3 of the 4 races this season, but he is currently qualified 4th, which means he's got a lot more work to do if he wants to beat the 3. Right now it's Jake Johansson who looks like he's got the best pace to match Alessandrini there in 2nd.
A little bit of bent-up bodywork will have to get repaired for the start of the race now. But remember, with our 8-driver invert, the driver that will actually be starting on the front of the grid is Thomas Sherman at number 23. So things are going to look a lot different towards the front of the field. We've got some new drivers joining us here tonight. Mike Leader in the 53 car is going to start just outside that invert in 9th. James Miller back with us again in the 09. A 24-car grid for this race, which is a really strong field. But let's talk a little bit about Mid-Ohio Sports Car Course specifically here, Tom. Specifically, the 13 turns and 2 1/4 miles we run around here. It's a fun racetrack, but it's also a challenge. Lots of fast corners.
Known as one of the most technical for a driver in North America. It starts on a very short front straightaway into a super fast turn 1. A dab of the brake, set the nose on the Lamborghini, and then tack her up down towards the keyhole. It's actually up towards the keyhole. A pretty significant climb into a great passing opportunity. Lots of line choices as well there at the keyhole. Then into the back straightaway. A little kink at turn 3 into the S's. China Beach is what we call turn 4. Carrying your speed through the right-hander, then a left over Madness at turn 5, down the hill at turn 6, under the bridge at turn 7. That leads you into a tricky double right-hander where you have to slow the car down, a big momentum section through turns 8 and 9, over a crest into Thunder Valley. The V10 screaming up towards turn 11. Turn 11 is a super fast left-hander, almost as fast as turn 1, in fact, before you finally get the car slowed down through the carousel at turns 12, and then the kink onto the front straightaway at turn 13. Another section of track with a number of line options when you're by yourself, but when you're racing, this place becomes very, very narrow because of all those direction changes.
And I think that'll roll us straight into our keys to the race. We already talked about beat the 3, but you just mentioned it's single lane. This is a very single groove racetrack, 2 distinct passing opportunities into the keyhole, and the resultant of that down at turn number 4, entering the 4, 5, 6 complex. That's really your passing opportunities. Everywhere else, you're sort of following in line.
It is, and anytime something provokes a battle between 2 cars, because turns 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9 all influence one another, it's often not just a one-corner exchange between the 2 cars. It often takes sometimes up to half a lap to make a pass complete, and it also tends to ignite other battles behind you. So if drivers are going to get racy here, we saw it in other races this week, in fact, that we visited Mid-Ohio at, things get very, very interesting when one driver decides to get brave.
So we're going to wait for our invert to happen here in just a moment. We'll get the race kicked off. Having a look at the weather information one more time. 76 in the air. Track temperature is 99 degrees Fahrenheit. But when you look at track temp, a lot of racetracks, 99 isn't all that bad. Mid-Ohio, though, is notoriously slick, not only in the wet, but also in the dry.
That's going to be really slick to deal with for sure. And I think that main thing that's going to influence is consistency tonight, because it is a fairly long race and there are just so many corners that influence one to the next. With that slick track, it's just going to be another variable for drivers to deal with and keep a control under as they try to be consistent in the race.
So waiting for our invert to happen here. Again, Kyle Heiner alongside Tom O'Gorman. Right after this at 9 p.m. Eastern will be the kickoff of round 5 of the 2021 SCRS LazyRocket Prototype Challenge with the LMP2 car, also from Mid-Ohio. Wrapping things up here. Then Friday off. Tomorrow night will be, well, tomorrow night we're off. Saturday night will be the Outsider Racing League from Circuit of the Americas. That's going to be a whole lot of fun. Watch the big old stock cars take on COTA. That will be a blast. Then Sunday, my recollection is, do we even have any streams on Sunday here, Tom? Looking at the schedule, I don't think we do.
We have a Indy Elite Series, I think, at Pocono.
Yes, Pocono Raceway for February 28th. You be back for that one?
I will.
Okay, just was making sure. Checking live on air if Tom will be around. Wouldn't miss it for anything. The Tricky Triangle on Sunday night. Then Monday off. Wednesday we'll be back with the DC Region iRacing League, heading to Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta with GT3 cars this time around, so some fast and louds. Then Thursday we'll be right back here the following week with Watkins Glen, but that will be we've got an off week next week for this series, so a little bit of a break before we head into the fun stuff here on Sim TV. All right, so we're going to invert 8. For DJ Alessandrini starting 8th, is that any obstacle to his performance here tonight? Do you think he's going to still win this race, or do you think he's going to struggle a little bit here?
No, it's definitely an obstacle because passing is very difficult at Mid-Ohio. It's just it's a tighter track. It's definitely a more club track as far as professional circuits go that have a bit of a platform in the United States. This track is really, I think, designed more for cars that were at the pinnacle of performance in 1970 than they are for 2021, and the Lamborghini GT3 cars are very, very, very fast for a track this tight. But that said, Alessandrini has gotten a lot of practice this season in the inverts with the main series, the Prototype Challenge series. I think he'll be able to use that to his advantage. But for other drivers that haven't necessarily had the chance to run towards the front, I think this is going to be a great opportunity. Looking at Thomas Sherman, who will inherit the pole, Jake Gertzen, Derek Rolveld, who I think is one of our pro class drivers. He might start, or is it Mitch Welker that's our first pro driver? The problem for Alessandrini is the further forward they get, the faster they are.
Yeah, looking at the driver chatter off in the session, it seems like there's actually been a little bit of an issue and an error potentially with this server. So we'll see what happens here. But in the meantime, we're in a holding pattern. And funnily enough, I just added red flag capability to our ticker. Not to this one, though. This didn't get the update just yet. I'm glad, because we haven't started the race. We're already running into issues. So we'll hang tight here. This race will be put on hold in a mild, I guess you could call it a rain delay for the meantime.
Sure, why not?
Lightning delay. We race in the rain here in sports cars. So while it's sunny out there, it's stormy in the server. We'll say that for the meantime. The problem is that we don't have a lot of time between this and the Prototype Challenge race. So this might end up either running over, but we can't do that because we've got so many drivers. So we're going to see how this pans out.
The other problem, is that so many drivers compete in both series, the support and the main series. So this will be interesting. We're along for the ride now, but it's Thursday and we're got nowhere else to be. So
yeah. I mean,
we'll wait for the racing because the racing is fun. But I was going to go back to the AM Cup standings. We haven't really gotten to highlight that now that this is part of the championship. You mentioned it early on. There's a Pro Championship, AM Championship. It's actually Andrew Mickey that leads the AM Championship, who has had a relatively quiet season as far as broadcast time goes. I can't remember him from a particular battle or a particular strong performance, but he's been consistent enough for Team BRT, and he's leading the points over Brian Schabelsky, who I do remember from some exciting battles through this season. So maybe that's why Andrew Mickey is at the front, because he's been quiet but consistent.
Yeah, I think Andrew Mickey, looking back to Ferrari Challenge the past couple seasons, he's quiet, but when he gets the advantage of field inverts, he's a really tough guy to pass. Schabelsky and Miller specifically, I've seen him race in stock cars before, and every time he comes to road courses, he always crushes those. So not surprised to see Miller up there. Ryan Plord, not surprised either. Harry Grindell jumping up into 8th. But looking down the order, there's a couple drivers I expected to be higher. One of those is Thomas Morris in 9th. Again, one of the drivers I would have expected to run better, having seen his history in Ferrari Challenge in prior seasons. So I think we're going to see him maybe advance in the latter half of this season here. So in the meantime, we're just waiting on hold to see what happens. I'm not really sure what the procedure is for this, to be totally honest with you. I'm sure I'll get an update here shortly, but in the meantime, we're just going to wait it out, and we'll see what happens. I could see a couple different scenarios happen. We've got an off week next week, so one thing that could happen is they could push this race to next week in the off week, or they could run a shorter event, but the race is already only 30 minutes, so I don't really see them wanting to do that. Or they could just cancel it or move it off the schedule, which would be a shame, but that's the other option, I think, at this time.
I don't see any chatter really from the group right now. There's obviously a lot of in-game chatter, so that's stuff we can't hear. But I don't necessarily see any sort of directive right now. Everybody's waiting. What's odd is this is set up because of the invert a little bit differently than normal, and I have to assume that whatever happened is because of that invert, the qualifying session influencing the feature race. But we are in the race session, and there was almost an hour and 15 minutes put on the clock for a 30-minute race for some reason in this race session, which is just odd. It sounds like a glitch to me.
Yeah, maybe. I think the reason why. Oh, that's interesting. They do have a 19-lap number as well, and I'm surprised that there would be so much time put on that clock.
Just like it didn't cue the gridding.
It's almost exactly what it looks like. I did see that it got the grid and green flag command from the sim without a pace truck even showing up on the racetrack. So
I did see the Porsche the pace Porsche roll down pit lane, so maybe it went on autopilot and cruised off into the distance all by itself. But definitely a lot of in-race chatter. I think people pretty confused.
Yeah, that we can add me to that list. It has been a rough week in iRacing for technological reasons. Now, Tom, I'm not sure if you've been sort of in the weeds on what happened specifically, but essentially Comcast has a link near Boston where iRacing servers are located, and Comcast customers have been affected by it. Here on AT&T in Chicago, not a big deal, but I do think that there are some technical gremlins that have been affecting more than just end users. It's sort of on iRacing side a little bit as well. So it sounds like we're going to, I'm just reading chatter here. I think we might end up having to postpone it, and we'll have to try this one again. This is the second race this week. We've had to postpone and move to a different day. Fuel's making up their race next Tuesday by running a doubleheader at Charlotte. So maybe we can do that.
Our intro was so good.
It was so good. We started off so strong, so good. Oh, man. I think we're just starting to figure this out, don't you think? We're just starting to get good at this, maybe.
Maybe someday.
Huge thanks to LazyRocket Vinyl, by the way, while we're talking, or while we're waiting. LazyRocket, they do full vehicle liveries, decals, stickers, everything of the sort. Time your race car's covered in LazyRocket Vinyl. We intend to cover it more with LazyRocket Vinyl, as with my my Fiesta track toy. We're going to cover it all with LazyRocket stuff. You should check him out on Instagram and tell him that SimTV sent you. And he's a good guy, Anthony, over there at LazyRocket. So let's see what's going on. I will tell you one thing, though. Mid-Ohio, my first visit was this past summer, and I got to ride with DJ in his GLTC Civic on street tires in the full wet. We were following you in your S2000 in full wet. Were you on the RT660s at that point?
No, I was actually trying some old rain tires, but
it was interesting.
They were worse than the Falcons, I will tell you that. And what's super fascinating, I'm sorry if I'm stealing the thunder from your story, but Mid-Ohio is the weirdest track in the wet, and I know that that's something that you're really looking forward to when maybe, fingers crossed, we get that feature in iRacing.
Yes, please. I remember following you down the back straightaway. We're probably doing 100 miles an hour with your back end just completely skewed out for the duration of the straightaway. And we also almost gave you a bump drive. Did we give you a bump drive? We were real close to it.
You did.
It was fun.
That's what's annoying about the back straight here in the wet is it's not straight. So you want to go flat out, but there's a river across it and a turn, and it's a little hairy.
It sure is. All right. Eric Mickey has joined us here in the booth. Hey, Eric, you got a copy?
Yeah. What's up?
Hey, we're live on air. We just kind of want to fill in and see what's going on, what the plan is here to make up this race potentially. We'll see what happens here.
Oh, yeah. I thought you would have gotten the news some other way by now, but with the time crunch we have between this session and the next session, we don't have enough time to get another session launched and hope that it works the way it's supposed to. I have no idea why this didn't work this time. It literally only the track and the lap count of the races have changed from last week, where it worked perfectly fine. So I have no idea why it went wrong. We have no way of getting up a new session and running it out to its conclusion as it should be before the prototype races would have to get underway, and there's no way to delay those. So we're going to have to call off the night for the Lamborghini, potentially find a way to make that up if we can, but otherwise that's just kind of the situation we're dealing with.
All right, so it sounds like a reschedule to me. Thanks for filling us in, Eric. We'll get prepped for Prototype Challenge here in about 40 minutes, and we'll see you on the other side.
Yeah, thanks a lot, and sorry to have kept you waiting.
No worries. All right, so we'll wrap this up for now, and what the circumstance for this here, Tom, is as with all technical-related issues and implementations, this race, if and when it gets rescheduled, we will cover this race in its entirety. This broadcast will remain on the SimTV channel for the meantime until that race gets rerun. But we'll see you again in 40 minutes at 9 Eastern for the SCRS LazyRocket Prototype Challenge. We'll see if that one goes a little better. We'll see you on the other side.